Yo, what up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Source and Company. I'm your host, Source, of course. As always, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Smitty Source on both of those. Of course, subscribe to the Source and Company YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. And somebody, please do me the favor of following that show Instagram, Source, the letters NCO podcast underscore RVA. Somebody that joins in the struggle so that get them numbers up, make it look a little better for my personal feelings. Anyway, today's company is, let me go to my list, even though I could probably just off the top of my head. Comedian, actor, philanthropist, business owner, event host. I mean, if you're in Richmond, you know he's an event host because like for the last 15 years, it seemed like everything that goes down hosted by this guy. So he's
Bill.
also, we're gonna get way off into this black golfer thing. He's also a golfer. I'm still questioning golf. I don't know if it's really my lane. And he's a volleyball coach, high school volleyball, which is crazy.
Yep.
We definitely got to talk about that. And the most recent that I remember, you got your master's in divinity. Is that real?
Yeah, Virginia Union
Yes, sir.
Seminary. Yeah, yeah. We can
Indeed.
talk about that too. It's a story behind. It's a story behind all of it.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Micah, Bam-Bamm White. What's good, bro?
Hey, what's up, my man? You good?
Yes, sir. I'm always good. Always good. Glad to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Oh, thank you for asking me, bro. I appreciate it, man. You know, any opportunity to sit down, chop it up with good brothers, I'm all about that.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So we're just gonna start all the way at the beginning because I have one specific question. So you're
Okay.
from Alabama originally, correct?
Birmingham, Alabama, West End. Yes, sir.
So Roll Tide, War Eagle.
Oh, War Eagle all day, man. War,
Word?
and I got two reasons on War Eagle. A, because when I was coming up, that's when Bo Jackson was the running back for the Auburn Tigers.
Okay.
And then B, now that was the first reason. That was before I really knew anything about social consciousness or any of that. I just knew there was this dude that was running the football. He was a bad dude.
Yeah.
But then as I got older and started to understand about self, if you will, and I realized that Auburn fought and chose to get black players. Alabama was pretty much forced to get black players. Then I knew I had the right team. So that doubled down as an adult for me to say, yeah, I did pick the right team as a kid.
That's real. That's 100% true. And it wasn't until after they got smacked by an all black team, I believe.
No, they got smacked by USC, University of Southern California. And even then, the governor at the time, George Wallace, stood on the steps of Alabama University and said, basically, they're going to prove why Negro is not worthy of running the fields of Alabama. They got their ass kicked 63-20. The next year, Bear Bryant had 3 black dudes on his team. That's how that went.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. He was like, well, I guess we can't beat them. We gonna have to let them join us.
Yeah, and that was even a time, from what I understand, that they were about, because Alabama got a whole lot of championships. They talk about and brag about all the championships they got. But then there was a time where they were about to take those championships or either put asterisks by them, because when teams played Alabama, if that team had a black person on the team, Alabama wouldn't play them. So teams would not play their black players so they can get the Alabama money. So they were about to be like, yo, y'all ain't beating no teams with black dudes. And that's how it came up with them having to play against USC to kind of prove that they could beat teams with black players. But again, we know how that went. And we see what they are now. Pretty much all black.
Yeah. All black, everything.
Yeah.
So growing up in Alabama, actually, before I even say growing up in Alabama, you're from Alabama. You've been in Virginia for like 20 plus years or somewhere around that time frame. You don't sound like you're from Alabama. Yet every person that's from New York still sounds like they're from New York. Why is that?
Because sounding like you from New York when you in California is cool. Sounding like you from Alabama when you anywhere else but Alabama ain't necessarily cool.
Right. Perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
So by being a comedian and also wanting to go on the road as a comic when I first started when I was 20, I did go around the country when I started to go around the country, and I would talk the way that my vernacular was in Alabama. But I realized two things: people like you get made up fun of, when they call you country. And I tell people all the time, I'm not country, I'm Southern. And it is two different things because it's country people in New York. But then I also understood that people outside of Alabama really can't understand you. So if you're going to be an orator and you're going to be going out trying to make money talking, well, you need to speak where people can understand you. So I worked pretty hard on not losing my roots of my dialect, but also just becoming a little bit more neutral as to how I talk. So yeah, it was an effort to lose
More,
that Alabama
more
accent. But don't get
worldly.
me wrong. When I go back to Alabama, I be talking like they're right here, because that's what we talk about. That's how we turn up down there. That right.
Understood. Understood. So you talk about growing up in Alabama. Um, Actually, I heard you mention on another podcast or another show that you were raised by your grandmother
Yep.
predominantly,
Yep.
and I'll let you get into that because that's your story.
Hey, well, so I was raised. So quick story about that, how that came to be. My mom's had me when she was 18 years old. My pops was 19 at the time. My mom was actually in a relationship at the time with a woman. So my dad, now this is 75 or 74 when I was conceived. So you can imagine being a gay woman in Alabama in the 70s. You think they got it bad now. Back then, bro, it was a big problem. But
Right.
my mom, she was a typical 18-year-old, trying out life and trying to do things, trying to figure things out. So my grandmother, first my mother's girlfriend's mother took me from my mother and her girlfriend.
Hmm.
And my grandmother, my mother's mom, she adopted me at the age of 1, just so I wouldn't go into the foster care system, and also to create some type of stability in my life. So my grandmother adopted me, but I was raised by 9 women, 3 different families. So it wasn't just my grandmother. She had a lot of help. As they say, it takes a community to raise a village, if you will, to raise a child. And I literally was raised by a village.
Hey, respect Black women. That's what we that's what the world is finally saying. Even though it
Yeah,
took a long time to get to that point for some people, some of our people as well. But we getting there. We getting there.
progress and time, baby. That's all it takes. A little progress, a little time. That's all.
Indeed, indeed. So how was that as far as growing up? Like, was that a point of contention for you, like neighborhood kids and growing up? And was that a public thing? Like your
Dog, I'm from the hood, man. Kids are mean, dog. Come on, man. You
right?
know what that was like. Of course, being picked on all the time. My grandmother didn't have much money. She raised me off the money from my grandpops, who was a Tuskegee Airman, and he died in the Korean War. So she
Wow.
was she was raising me off of the money that my granddad got. She was retired, and of course, a retirement for a lady back in those days in the South, they didn't have a whole lot of money, so I didn't have much. So yeah, I was picked on all the time. My neighbors, most of them all had their mother and pops at the crib, and none of them was raised by their grandparents. So yeah, I was sort of the oddball. But in hindsight, it was, man, that was a rich upbringing. To have a grandmother that loved me the way she did, had already raised 7 kids of her own. So she understood that a kid is going to do what a kid want to do. So she didn't teach me what to think. My grandmother taught me how to think. And I think that was pivotal in my life, because had I been raised by my parents, or if I would have been one of those first 3 kids, we don't get to really think for ourselves. But my grandmother, she just wanted me to be safe and be happy. So by the time I was 15, bro, I was pretty much on my own for the
Yeah.
most part. But my grandmother, she taught me how to think, and she allowed me to learn how to think versus living in dogma. And I got to do this, I got to do that. Now, I couldn't like get in trouble. I didn't want to go to jail or anything like that. But even
Right.
the reality behind that, it wasn't that I didn't want to go to jail because I was afraid of my grandmother. I didn't want to go to jail because I didn't want to hurt my grandmother. So that's the reason I really stayed out of trouble.
Hey, that's that's respect though. That's respect for your grandmother. So can't knock
Uh,
that at all.
Yeah, that's my girl. I mean, rest in peace. That's my homie. But yeah, she's a pretty remarkable person. Real remarkable person.
I
As
remember
I
you.
as I drink my beer, which she would hate.
Oh yeah, that's all right. That's all right. We all do some things that our grandparents probably wouldn't approve of.
Wouldn't agree with.
But the love is still would still be there anyway. So
Oh, absolutely. That's what you call unconditional love. Don't get me wrong. I got in trouble. I ain't gonna say I stayed in trouble, but I got in trouble. But until you, I guess, man, until you have your own kids, and I'll say this out there to people that don't have kids, you really don't understand the unconditional love aspect of your parents or your grandparents until you have your own kids and your kids do something stupid that you normally would leave people alone. But nah, that's yours. So you still believe in that person, rock with that person, push that person, love that person, take care of that person in spite of all of their faults. So my grandmother, she was the one that showed me unconditional love, no doubt.
Now you said unconditional love, so I have to say I think that the parent child or grandparent child relationship, to me, other than you're not talking about God, I think that is the only place where unconditional love actually exists. People say unconditional love in relationships and different things. If whoever you say you unconditionally love tried to kill you on a daily basis, at some point you're not going to love them anymore. They need,
Hey,
but other than your child, because and even sometimes that might not work out either.
well, I think, well, for me, bro, I think when it comes to love is I think a lot of people have their own, definitions of what they feel like love is. But unconditional love could also be telling you to get the hell out of my house because you
Mm.
can't stay here no more because of who you are, what you're becoming, what you're providing for this household, and what you're bringing into this household ain't making a healthy household. So I got to tell you to get the hell out of here. However, the moment that you get it together, without a doubt, I'm letting you come back into my house. Why? Because even though I kicked you out, I still love you. I just don't like what you're doing. If you think about the prodigal son in the Bible, for an example, one son stayed home and the other son was like, I want all my stuff and I'm out, pops. And dad gave him all his stuff. He rolled out. Once he went for broke and turned around and came back to the crib, what did pops do? Pops let him back in the house. Now, the son that had stayed there, he was a little pissed because he was like, yo, I done been here. You gonna let this dude back in the crib? But the reality of it is this your dad. Unconditional love. If you want to come back, I've been waiting for him to come back. So just because I think a lot of people confuse that, be like, well, my mama don't love me, my daddy don't love me, they kicked me out. Well, Negro, what did you do to get kicked
Right.
out? You know?
It wasn't
So
for nothing.
yeah, exactly. In most cases, it wasn't for nothing. So, but I think unconditional love means it's an expression of desire that I want the best for you in spite of anything. I never have ill will for you. And if I can help you, I'm gonna help you. But if I can't help you, I gotta let you go. But I still have that same desire for you to be the best that you can be. That's the way I kind of look at unconditional love.
Hey, that's a good definition. Now, I was going to hold off on the masters in divinity, but that felt like a mini sermon on unconditional love. So,
I just drank my beer. That's right. That's how we do it.
The Lord know, it's all right, it's all right. So, well, first of all, you and I actually met in a kind of setting. It was like a men's meeting. It was black men of
A
color.
pretty powerful setting, if you ask me. Shout out to my man Mark Cheatham. Yeah,
Indeed, indeed. And you actually spoke at the first or second one that I went to. So
I spoke at the very first one he had.
first one, okay. So it was first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you told your story. You talked about your life and growing up, and even to some things that have happened more recently. And
Mhm.
actually, on I ran across an article that I remember from like 2 years ago where you had reunited with your daughter. Is that
Yeah,
is that fair to say? Right?
yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
how does
Um,
okay, I'm not gonna
that's
ask you
man.
how we got there, but how has it been since then?
Oh man, it's been awesome. I just actually just texted her this morning. We talk all the time now. Just kind of give you game on that or put you up on that. Um, I'm on tour. Beautiful, incredible lady sitting on the front row. One thing led to another. I got this kid, right? So I was raising my daughter here in Richmond, Virginia. She was 4 years old. My daughter's mother was living in Colorado at the time, which is where we met in Denver, Colorado. And while my daughter and I were here together, well, my daughter and I was here together, her mom called and was like, yo, I'm coming to pick her up. And I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. But what had happened was, to my best understanding, she had gotten married. And when she had gotten married, it was pretty much this deal that I had to be totally out the picture. So when they came and got her, man, I didn't talk to my daughter for 12 years. So you can imagine sending stuff through the courts, calling clerks every day. And let me say this, as a black man in America, man, you can do everything the right way. You can do everything. Like, I don't want to hear that crap about, men don't want to be in their kids' life. That's a lot of that all the time ain't right, because it was hard for me to get through the court systems. But anyway, my daughter, long story short, my daughter ran away from home at the age of 16 because of my daughter's mother's husband. And when she ran away from home, I never forget it, man. Me and my homeboy Daryl, DNS, DJ, shout out to Daryl Squires. We were sitting at the bar at Mama J's, and I looked on Instagram, July 19th, 2017, and my daughter was following me on Instagram. So I immediately wrote her a message, DM'd her on Instagram. She told me she was going through some stuff. I didn't know quite exactly what. Then on July 12/42, July 22nd was the first time I talked to my daughter on the phone. I had a show that night at the BMFA. I was producing an event called After Hours and talked to her for the first time. That Christmas in 2017, I flew to Denver, drove down to Boulder, Colorado, where she was staying and going to high school at Boulder University, at Boulder High School, which she's now in college there at Colorado University. And I guess you could say her sort of adopted family allowed me to come on in, saw my daughter for the first time. She came here June the next year, had been 13 years since she had been here. And then I went back for Thanksgiving. Then I went back for her graduation. Now she's in college. So yeah, we got a real relationship now. And still, I have not talked to her mother. So it's been probably 16 years now, and I have not talked to her mom, but I don't need to. My daughter grown, we got our own thing going, so it's cool. But let me say this for the record. I am not mad at her mom. Like, a lot of people, like, I know once you talk to her, you're going to say this and say that. The biggest thing I want her mom to know is, like, I got no beef with you. You did what you felt you needed to do. It's unfortunate, but we can't change the past. And I'd be damned if I'm a live with anger in my heart because of an action that you did that I had no control over. So in my heart, for a mom, is all peace. The dude, I don't know if I'm ready to see him yet. Not because I'm gonna do something, but I just don't know emotionally if I'm in a place to where I want to see somebody I consider the separator of me and my daughter. So I don't know if I'm ready to see him yet. But yeah, me and my daughter, we back together, and it's all good. She's spending all my money, so it's all good.
Respect. Hey, that's great though, man. Because as you mentioned, it's a lot of people who don't get that opportunity, and sometimes, I mean, you see it, and it comes down to money a lot of times, and not necessarily that somebody doesn't want to pay what they need to pay. Sometimes they just can't afford to pay what they need
Like,
to pay.
hey, boy, and especially if you're a black man in America, man, it's already hard enough to take care of yourself. Now, so, and I think a lot of people, even in relationships, one of the things that I was going to put on Instagram, I have this thing called meisms. And one of the things I was actually going to put on Instagram this morning, or Facebook, or whatever you want to call it, was, and I wrote it down, was, don't judge a person by how much they have to give. Judge a person by what they're willing to give. And what I mean by that is, not everybody have what you want them to give. But if a person is willing to give you their last, even if it's only $1, that shows the true heart of a person. Because you can have a person that's got millions of dollars and give you all those millions, but if he's a messed up person or she's a messed up person, then what is it worth? So I don't think we need to judge people by what they have. I think we should judge them by what they're willing to give.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, put that out there tomorrow. Tomorrow, do that.
Got it. Done.
So, I mean, we touched on a couple things. Oh, the masters in divinity, bruh. Like, first of all, why? I shouldn't say why. No, for real, why?
No, it's a good question. Yeah.
That's it.
The why. So, and I try to be efficient in my answers because I can talk. But man, we all, I think in America, we grow up and we're given this ideology of what religion is and who God is and what Jesus means and why we should not read other books. And I'm hard headed, man. Whatever you tell me not to do, if I feel like it ain't gonna hurt me physically, I'm gonna try to do it. If it ain't gonna hurt nobody else or me physically, I'm gonna try to do it because I need to see why you're telling me not to do it. So I went to divinity school. So when I moved to LA, I was raised up in the church. Like you heard me say, I was raised by 3 different families. I was raised by a Baptist family, which is my mother's mother. I was raised by a Pentecostal family, which was my mother's girlfriend's family. And then I was raised by a Catholic family, which was a white family that I had met and took me in for the most part when I met them playing volleyball, which I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So that's 3 different denominations of Christianity that I was raised in as an early child. So my foundation of religion wasn't really based in one particular thing. So then I started to ask these questions. Well, who's right? Like, well, who's right? Then when I moved to LA, I started studying Buddhism. And when I started studying Buddhism, I was like, yo, this this could this could help. This could really help Black people. Like when I think about our mindsets, not even just Black people, but of course I'm thinking about it from a cultural lens, if you will. But whether you're Black, white, Latino, Asian, when I started to study Buddhism, I was like, yo, here's the magic to handling our emotions in the world. But
Mm.
why, when I was a kid, people told me not to listen to this dude. Like before I even knew, or they even knew who he really was or is. Then I started to read the Quran. And when I started to read the Quran, I was like, yo, it's pretty dope. Like the disciplines in the Quran.
Right.
And I look at the disciplines of some of my Christian friends. I look at the disciplines of some of my Muslim friends, and it's 2 different things. Christians are lazy in a lot of ways, not all. Let me preface this. A lot of Christians are lazy in their belief because they say, if I believe in Jesus, I'm good. And they
Right.
don't do nothing. So but then I look at my Muslim friends and they like every day, I gotta put it in. Then I look at my Buddhist friends and you can pretty much literally spit on them and they'll pray for you immediately. I
Mm.
know some Christian folks, you spit on them, it's gonna be a problem. So I'm looking at these balances, and then I was like, one day I was reading the Bible, dog, and I'm sitting there reading the Bible, and I'm like, man, I don't understand none of this. Like, this is gibberish to me. So I had to realize that in order for me to understand this Bible, I needed to stop asking other people, what does this mean? I need to go and get a formal education for myself. And that's why I went. Because if it's that important, then why am I always waiting on somebody else to tell me what this particular scripture or this passage means when I can just go find out by myself? So that's why I went to seminary. And I'm happy I did too, because a lot of the things that I was thinking was confirmed, even though the church still preaches things that are contrary to what we learn.
Right.
But also a lot of things I was confused about was sorted out, and even some misconceptions I had were corrected. So I'm happy I went. But that's the reason I went. It wasn't because in that moment I thought I was going to be a preacher. I was trying to move up in the ranks in the church, which is what a lot of people are there for, which is great.
Right.
For me, it was just about I need to know this for myself. If it's that important, I need to know this for myself. That's why.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, you are a preacher. Like, well, you're a teacher. Probably, I mean, looking at the list of things that you do, you are a teacher, preacher, you're a public speaker. So I think all those things can be rolled into one. And even if it's not sold as Christianity or religion, it's still the same overlying message.
I, I agree with that. I have a lot of people that tell me the stage is my pulpit. So yeah, I agree with that. And I accept that. I think when it comes to being a preacher, there are a lot of expectations that congregations have from the person that's in the pulpit,
Right.
and I don't live up to those expectations. Therefore, I'm not going to subject myself to be in a position to where I know the scrutiny that's going to come with it can mess up the message. So I just
Mm.
rather do it the way that I do it. And if you catch it, you catch it. If you don't, it's cool.
That's real. I just asked somebody the other day, one young lady that I went to church with when we were growing up. It was like messenger or message because sometimes the message will be there. Okay, I am the type of person that if you make a post, this is kind of related. If you post something, right, it
Yeah.
has 15 uh, grammar errors in it, at some point I'm gonna stop reading it because I'm like, I'm not listening to this foolishness because I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
But there might be something that's meaningful in that statement, even though I'm judging it based on the surface of what it is.
That's
Like this kind of related, kind of.
no, it totally is related. We have things that can turn us off that eliminates the power of what we could have gotten if we would have just kept listening or stayed the course. But
Yeah,
because you got 4 run-on sentences, by the third one, I'm like, yo, I'm not listening to this. Like, come on, man. You don't need because what happens is you would say you don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you gonna tell me not to drink? But nigga, I saw you at Mona's last night, turned up. Come on, man. Why should I listen to you? But it doesn't mean that that person telling you not to drink isn't right. It just means
right.
that they're also trying to find a way out of those processes of life too. But again, I just know that pulpit, man, that pulpit comes with some expectations. And I got some brothers and I got some sisters um, that they get up in that pulpit and they live the life that they preach and teach. Then I got some friends that go up there and teach it and preach it that don't live the life. However, what they telling you, they know what they're talking
Right. Yeah.
about.
Yeah. It makes it tough, but we're all human, so we're all walking the same path. Generally speaking, it's just
Yep,
how we get there. It's all how we get there.
yep, yeah,
Let's
yeah, yeah. So,
let's
but that's
jump.
why I went to seminary, man. And I mean, man, I can go through some misconceptions, that it's just, it's on one side, it's a beautiful thing what religion has done for us, and then on the other side of that same coin, it's a horrible thing what religion has done to us. You know, it's just two sides of the coin, man.
Religion will have you listening to a person that's telling you something that you know is wrong, but because it's coming from that person that you respect, you're like, it's got to be right. I actually saw this happen. I saw this happen in life with a family member who shall remain nameless. And we don't have to talk about the election, but for real. But they were just harping on the fact that this many preachers can't be wrong. They can't be wrong. All these preachers that are saying Trump and following behind Trump, they can't all be wrong because that kind of that takes it takes their whole belief system and puts it like to the test. So now they're like, wait, if all of them are following this and it's wrong, but they're teaching me, how am I supposed to go forward? Because it makes you question everything back to whenever you started learning.
But two things though, bro, that I'll say to that. That was a very good analogy and very good, not just analogy. That's a very good reality to use. Um, the thing about that is, a therein lies a person to the point that I made earlier that doesn't think for themselves. Number one. Number two, their source of information, they have used a macro representation of a micro reality, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Um, the media's reality is a very small sense of life, but they've used the majority of what was shown to them in that little small piece. So they like all these preachers. Yeah, but how many more that you don't know of that would never ever tell you what those preachers are saying? So if you don't think for yourself, then you don't even know how to get outside of that bubble to go and research or find out any other information. And B, if you've been led to let people tell you what to do for so long, and then you get somebody with the title preacher on it that you have respected that particular title, yeah, they can tell you anything. How you think people go to the top of the mountain and drink that damn Kool-Aid that dude was telling them to drink? You know, because of a title and because these people didn't know how to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And if I'm
Here
talking
talk.
like this and I'm making it sound good, sound deep from my soul, deep from my soul, you probably believe it the damn thing I say.
That's true. That's a whole nother topic in itself. It's a whole topic of religion and Christianity in itself. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that because you got so much going on. So we have to get back to the comedy. Well,
Okay.
we talked about you being a volleyball player.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask how. I really want to know how you became a volleyball coach. First of all, it's because you're a coach in Chesterfield, right?
Yep. James River High School. Shout out to the Rapids. Yep.
I'm just gonna ask, bro. And the girls, right?
Yeah.
How 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 they let you do that?
I believe some things I can look back on my life and say, okay, that I chose to do. This chose me, and volleyball chose me. Coaching at James River chose me. Coaching girls chose me. I'll give you a quick story. So I started playing volleyball when I was 14 years old. And I started playing because the high school, there was this youth volleyball league that was a part of like a summer Olympics where we had basketball, softball, baseball, girls and boys basketball, bowling, tennis, track, volleyball, co-ed. It was all these different sports. And all these cities came to Atlanta. They did it every year and they went to different places. But all these cities came to Atlanta. It was called Youth Games. And the volleyball team practiced at my high school, which was in the hood, ironically. So the volleyball team practiced at my high school. The coach asked me if I wanted to play. I was like, nah, I'm good. And so I found out this girl that I liked was on the team. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Went to Atlanta, came back from Atlanta, and there were newspaper write-ups about, players in all the sports. And when it came to volleyball, I often had the write-up, about volleyball. Micah White did this, he had this. So my grandmother was like, and it was the first time I saw my name in the paper. So I connected volleyball with a level of success that everybody could know about as it pertains to me. Now you got to think, hood, low self-esteem. We already talked about being raised by my grandmother. So here's some positive reinforcement. Right. So I took on the volleyball. A family from that team, brother, a white dude from that team that I became cool with, introduced me to another guy, and that's the family that took me in, the Hurd family. Shout out to Michael and all of the whole Hurd family. So I get to Richmond, and I wanted to coach basketball. That was my thing. I was sitting in the computer lab at Virginia State University, and my homeboy ran the computer lab. The volleyball coach came in. The original coach had gotten fired for something. I don't know exactly. I think it was money or something. But the other guy came in. He knew nothing about volleyball. So my boy was like, yo, my man here knows something about volleyball. He plays. So I just went to practice just to help out, just to give him the drill. But I knew nothing about coaching. So that happened. Then I went to RVC, Richmond Volleyball Club, because I went there because I was like, I'm gonna continue to play volleyball. I found out you had to pay $50 to join. I ain't have 50 on me. So I was like, all right, so much for that I did. Then me and the Virginia State volleyball team went to watch Bowie and Virginia Union's volleyball team scrimmage. I am sitting in the bleachers, as God is my witness. I'm sitting in the bleachers. I look down, in between my feet was a $50 bill, as God is my witness. That same night, I went back to RVC, signed up, used that $50 to sign up so I could play volleyball. On my application to play, I wrote that I was a coach for Virginia State University's volleyball team. So the director of juniors, which is youth volleyball, called me and asked if I would be interested in coaching club volleyball, which is like travel volleyball. Right. So it's like AAU basketball. So I told him, I'll give it a shot. So I went, ended up coaching the 16s regionals team, met a guy by the name of Clark Menger. Clark was the head coach at James River High School at the time. I was still at Virginia State. That following year, I ended up leaving Virginia State, and I said I was going to go coach high school. Well, I was my thought was I'm going to go coach at Huguenot. So Clark was like, well, why don't you come coach with us at James River so you can understand how the high school rankings work, and then you can move on to Huguenot to start your own program. I'm like, it's a great idea. James River was a successful program. So I went there, coached there for 1 year. At the end of that year, the Powhatan job opened up. Well, Clark and Debbie, he and his wife, who coached the team together, they wanted to coach at Powhatan. So what ended up happening, they were like, we're going to take the Powhatan job. We're going to vouch for you to get the James River job. And they did. James River hired me, and that's how I ended up at James River.
Wow. Wow. and
some things you choose, man. Some things choose you.
And you're still loving it.
I love working with kids. You know, things have changed a little bit from when I first started back in 2000 because I coached there from 2000 to 2009.
I was say 2000.
Left, moved to Los Angeles, lived in LA, was moving from LA to New York, was supposed to be in Richmond for 3 days. I've been in for 8 years now. But when I got back, my goddaughter, who is actually Clark and Debbie's daughter, who's now also going to Penn State to play volleyball, she was like, you know, I want to play. She was 10. And she says, I wanted to play volleyball for a 14s team at U-Turn. And so I said, you know, you should do it. And she was like, well, the only way I'll play is if you coach me. And I'm like, yo, I'm done with coaching. Like, I'm done with coaching. Like, nah. So then I'd written this business plan. Some other things were trying to be worked out. So I'm trying to figure out, do I want to stay in Richmond for a minute or do I want to go ahead and go to New York? And then my boy Clark was like, well, if you coach my daughter's volleyball team, we'll give you a place to stay, we'll give you a car, and you'll get paid to coach, and we won't charge you anything for the car and the place to stay. So that's how I ended up back in Richmond.
Like, what? Okay.
Yeah, so I coached 13 at U-Turn. 3 years later, I was speaking at RVC, Richmond Volleyball Club again. The guy that was the head coach at James River at the time, Joe Sullivan, saw me there. He was like, man, you know, this is my last year at James River. He was like, you got to come back and coach. And I, as a joke, I was like, I do it. I do it. I was totally joking. So 2 weeks before the season starts, I get a call from the athletic director at the time. And he was like, Chip Boone. And he was like, hey, man, we held the spot for you. They told me you were coming back. And I'm like, what? Like, they were like, yeah. So that's how I ended up back at James River. Again, it chose me.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Actually, it is really crazy, actually.
It's kind of different now. Is there, well, volleyball is a what season sport?
We're a winter sport, but we're doing it this season in the spring. Well, I mean, we're a fall sport, but we're doing it this year in the winter. We're doing it in February.
Gotcha.
Because of COVID. And that's if we end up doing it. It might not happen.
Yeah. I hope for the best. I have my youngest daughter's a senior and she runs track, and I really need her to be able to run this year. She really wants to run this year, and you know.
What year what school she at?
Glen Allen.
Oh, okay. But you know, it's a little different for track than I think it would be for volleyball.
Right, for the touching
sport. It's a more individual sport. Other than 4x4 or 4x2 relay or the mile relay, other than relays, you're not touching the same things that other people touch. Whereas volleyball, everybody's right on top of one another. Everybody's touching the same ball. Everybody's touching this. It's different. So for her, I think there are more ways to be made for kids to run track than they are to play team sports where you gotta be together.
Right, football included. Yeah, understood.
Yeah, all that. Yeah. Because I'm not so much worried about my kids. I'm worried about my kids' grandparents. You know, if one of my kids gets sick, then go home and care it to their grandparent. Their grandparent died just because they wanted to play volleyball. I don't think that's an even trade.
And that's a heavy load to bear, even if it didn't happen that way, but the same thing happened. So they're going to internalize it as if it could have been them that caused the issue. So.
And then here I am as the coach carrying that burden as well because one of my teammates, blah blah blah, and you know, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough.
So let's jump back to your comedy because I mean we got to touch on the comedy. That's
what people know that I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't start comedy until you came to Virginia.
No, I started right before I came to Virginia. I started in Birmingham, Alabama, at a spot called Fairfield, Alabama. Some people say, well, if you want to relate it to Richmond, Fairfield is like Chesterfield. to Richmond.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like right next to it, but it's probably as big as Colonial Heights.
Hmm.
Henry Hank Aaron is from Fairfield, Alabama. So to kind of give you some popularity that came out of Fairfield. But Ricky Smiley had a comedy night every Sunday. And my roommate at the time, well, actually it was before that. Yeah. So Ricky Smiley had a comedy night in Fairfield. My homeboy went to school with Ricky Smiley. So we ended up going to one of the comedy nights. I'm sitting there. I was 20 years old at the time, had no business in there drinking beer. But anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm gonna do that. So I went up and asked Ricky. I was like, yo, man, can I do comedy next week? He was like, yeah, come on. So that whole week, I went and worked out some material. Went back the following week on Sunday, and bro, honestly, man, within 15 seconds on stage, I knew that I would be doing it for the rest of my life. And that was March 24th, 1996. September 29th, 1996, that same year, I moved to Richmond. And when I moved to Richmond, my pops and my stepmother at the time was telling me, you got to go get a job. You got to go get a job. And I was like, man, I'm about to go tell these jokes. Like, y'all, to hell with that job stuff. Y'all, that's
Go get
y'all.
these jokes.
I'm going to tell these jokes. So I found the slip at Shaco. I don't know if you remember the slip at Shaco.
Come on now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found the slip, because I was calling every little club that I could find and telling them I wanted to start a comedy night because I watched what Ricky Smiley had done. And so I go to Slip, Orlando, shout out to Orlando, let me do comedy at the Slip. That worked out for a little while because the reality of it was I didn't really know what I was doing. Then I ended up going to Armani's on Midlothian Turnpike. They had already had sort of an established comedy night. And there was a dude named Herman Hurston that was coming in from Tidewater.
Right.
So they gave me a shot to host it. And when they gave me a shot to host it, I did a pretty good job, enough for them to hire me as the comedian. And so I started at Armani's probably in November of that year. And, my stepmom and my dad was still like, you got to get a job, you got to get a job, you got to get a job. And then so I went and got a job at Cooper's Watchworks in Chesterfield Town Center. It's now Dakota Watch now.
Yeah.
I was working there, man, and I worked 5 days a week, and I was bringing home $225. I worked one night on Friday, and I was bringing home $200. I ran the math, I ran the time, and I was like, yo, this ain't adding up, bro. So I was like, well, if I could just find another comedy night and get another $200, that'll replace this watch check. And that's exactly what I did. And so even then, I kept going in and out of jobs. And then my last job was 16 years ago. 16 years ago. No, 18 years ago was my last job, my last real 9 to 5. And I took a 30-day leave of absence to coach, do volleyball camps and do comedy. And after my 30 days leave of absence, I just never went back.
So that was 2002-ish.
Yeah, that was 2002-ish. The reason I know that, and it might be even longer than that because it is longer than that. It is longer than that. The World Trade Center went down when? What year was that?
2001.
What was that?
2001.
So it was 2001. Yep, it was 2001. So after the World Trade Center went down, I was like, man, I'm out. Like I'm out. I'm out. Not because of the World Trade Center, but because I had like July, I had a bunch of comedy shows booked up, and I had volleyball camps every week. So the volleyball camps was paying me roughly about $1,000 a week, along with these comedy shows. And then after I had that freedom, that full freedom for 30 days, man, it was just no way I could go back to work. It was just no way.
Yeah, understood. And it's paid off. It's paid off in many ways. Financially and your success altogether.
It has, bro. But I tell people, don't let the fiscal aspect of it be the end all be all, what makes it successful or not successful.
True.
The journey is what a success is. And if I had been bogged down to have to work for somebody for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I would have not experienced life the way that I've been able to experience it. I'm not saying that everybody should do it because it ain't for everybody. I think God calls certain people to do different things. But
Right.
for me, um, I think God needed me to experience life so that I could be his reporter the way he needs me to report.
Mm.
Because if I had a job, I wouldn't be able to have all of this information that I got from being able to live life freely.
That's 100% true. I can definitely agree with that. I can definitely agree
But,
with that.
but,
Tell me this, way off topic. No,
okay.
it's on topic. Why is Gary Owen so funny to black people? I'm not saying he's not funny to black people. I mean, I'm not saying he's not funny to me personally. I'm just asking the question, what is it about him that makes him so funny to black people? Like, I can appreciate his jokes. I can appreciate him because, you don't get that a lot. And he's very, I mean, I think he's genuine in what he's saying.
He is genuine. Let me first say that. I think that's one thing. Black people, we can kind of sit back and tell whether you putting on a show or whether you real about that, you know. And we might not be able to tell the first time around, but by the time you come back around the third time, we can be like, no, you with that book. I think he's tried and true. I think his natural, how can I say it? His natural like energy is it's in connection with our culture, you know. His wife is black, his kids are black. um, he was raised in poverty. Not to just say, well, because he was raised poor, that's why. I'm just
Right.
saying he understands the plight of the black culture as it pertains to systemic racism and things of that nature. Not that he's been treated that way, but through poverty, he gets it. He knows what it is inside. Um, and then if you look at his rhythm in his comedy, if you want to talk about the art itself, his rhythm fits black people's ear and black people's internal like tempo. You know,
Right.
we like to hear things a certain way. You know, that's why even if you go back to the church thing, that's why we got to talk like this when we in church. And if you go to a Catholic church, it's more explaining. Father did this. It's so he understands how to get into that spirit of a black person. And again, it's natural for him, man. He's not putting on a show. Um, Whenever we would hang out after the shows was over with, he wasn't necessarily telling jokes, but his way about the way he lives his life matches who he is on stage. So I think that's why black people love him so much. And he's a white dude doing it, makes him an anomaly. And
Yeah.
whenever you're an anomaly in anything and you can do it well, people gonna attract to that. Eminem, people gonna attract to it.
Exact same thing. Exact same thing.
Yeah.
And of course, I bring up Gary Owen out the blue because you were on tour with Gary Owen, and I know that's your man. So I wanted to at least get your take on that because of course,
Yeah, it's
one of the
I
famous
get a lot of
bits.
crap too sometimes, man. I don't know if you saw. Did you see his Showtime special that I was on with him? True story. When he had me come on stage and say
The N
the N
word.
word. Yeah, yeah, man. I got a lot. I still to this day get a lot of flack for that.
But it
I
felt,
can
I
go.
mean, it felt legit though.
A, he's acknowledging that he's not allowed to say it.
Right.
Number one, and then B, the other side of it is, bruh, it's a joke, and I don't know why the world is getting to a point to where they want everybody to be PC. Look, man, if y'all comedians, we are the last line of being able to say what you can. We the
Absolutely.
last line of that. So if you stop us from doing it, I mean, what you got hip hop that could be able to do it, but as far as like the real subliminal, intelligent way of going about saying things that other people can't say, we it. So if you stop us, you ain't got nothing. So let us be us and understand it's just a joke, man. It's just a doggone joke.
Who did you ever not pattern yourself? I mean, well, you had to see somebody that made you say, not that I can do this, but where your style comes from as far as on stage. It had to be somebody that kind of he was like, that might work for me and I can just tweak it and do my own thing, but there's got to be somebody out there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there are somebodies. I study the art of comedy. Um, I was raised watching Apollo. I'm sure, like you've seen as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was being raised watching Apollo, I loved Amateur Night. I didn't care too much about who the singer was. I always wanted to watch the professional comedy portion. And watching that is really what inspired me to become a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Chris Thomas, watching Steve Harvey back when he was doing it back then, watching those guys come up, that's what did it for me. And then when BET came out and Ricky Smiley was doing BET, there was somebody in Birmingham that I could connect with. Not that I knew him at the time, but for me, it was like, oh, that dude from Birmingham, he's from right here. And to see him on the big stage doing what he did, and then I would do high school talent show, because in high school, I sang a lot. I was singing and dancing and rapping. I wasn't doing no comedy in high school.
You did it all.
Huh?
Singing, dancing, rapping. Now you're a comedian. I mean, what don't you do? Is there anything that you missed out on?
I mean, as it pertains to art, man, I've been blessed, bro. I play 6 different instruments. So I was in the band. I had a band scholarship at Alabama A&M. So I mean, I did all those things. I did acting in high school, and when I did acting in high school, it was more comedic acting than it was, like serious acting, if you will. But comedy just intrigued me because of the difficulty. When I would rap, it was a rap group. When I would sing, it was a singing group. When I played instruments, it was a band. But when it's comedy, dog, it ain't nobody but you and a microphone. That's
You're on
it.
your own.
You're on your own, bro. You hanging out there by yourself. So that's what made me, one of the reasons I wanted to do comedy. Also, I think if you go back and look at, and this is, if you look at my life and the lives of a lot of people that are unfortunately living impoverished, don't have a lot of things going for them, we need reinforcement. So what I understood from comedy right away is that I could get positive reinforcement over and over and over and over again instantly from the people around me. So for me, that was acceptance. And when you're raised by your grandmama and y'all poor and don't nobody come over your house because you got roaches and don't nobody want to eat over there because they know you get powdered milk, and they see when they drop the box off with the big cheese and all that on the front porch, you looking for positive reinforcement. So comedy, or should I say in the beginning, acting gave me a little bit of that. And then when I was able to get it by myself on stage, I was like, I'm all in, bro. But then I was like, now I got to get good at it because I really want that good reinforcement. Now I don't need the reinforcement for self-esteem purposes. Now it's about healing. When I tell a joke, when I look at my audience, one thing I do realize, whether I know you or whether I don't, you got a problem going on in your life. So if you have come here to spend time with me, I'm going to see if I can give you something to heal you, even if it's just for the moment. So it has shifted, but in the beginning, it was about me healing myself. Now it's about me continuing to heal myself as I also work on healing the people that has come to listen to me tell jokes.
Man, that's a perfect ending. But I'm not going to let it end that way. I still got to ask you about this golf. I'm sorry. I got to ask you about this golf. So, okay, I've seen different videos, clips of you and other celebs golfing. Other black celebs. It's a lot of black people. What I understand, Tiger Woods made a difference in a lot of our lives when he hit the scene. Like that was like, boom, we can play too. All right, let's go. Hold on. Are you the member of a club where you're the only black person?
Yeah, I'm sitting in my podcast studio right now at Independence Golf Course, which is out in Founders Bridge. For 2 years, I was the only black member out here. Now there are 3 of us. So, and the funny thing, the second black member that came out here used me as a reference because he saw me on Instagram, but I didn't even know who he was.
It's like they all know each other. It's okay. Just let them go.
Shout out to my man Dwayne. He's my guy now. I mean, we play together all the time. But I tell people, man, I wish I would have put a basketball down in my 20s and picked up this game of golf. I'm working to go professional now. I mean, I want to go play senior golf. I'm 45. You can play senior golf at the age of 50. So I want to play senior golf by the time I'm 55. But it's the lessons that the lessons golf teaches you that pertains to life, I'm said that way, is second to any other sport. Any other sport. I can honestly say, and I played football, I played semi-pro football, I played basketball, played volleyball, as we spoke about. I ran track, all of that. Played baseball, was a damn good baseball player. Could have went pro in baseball, just didn't have the discipline, and my grandmother didn't have the money to put me through that AAU process. All of that being said, golf is the greatest game ever made, and I will go to my grave believing that. This is the greatest game that was ever made because of the so many different things that it teaches you about life, as well as the challenge that it gives you. In basketball, football, baseball, all that other stuff, I can do something to stop you. You know, I can physically post you up. I can push you off the block. I can tackle you. In volleyball, I can block your ball. In baseball, I can strike you out. In golf, it ain't nobody but you and yourself. That's it. So any mistake that you make ain't on nobody else. It's on you. Also, golf is all about recentering yourself. So for example, whether I hit a good shot or whether I hit a bad shot, when I'm getting ready to hit this next shot, I got to come back to zero. Adrenaline don't work in golf the way that it works in other sports. Right. You know, if I'm in basketball, I can just take over the game. You know, golf, if you get hyped, nah, it don't work out that way, son. You gotta come back, man. You gotta come back. And I think golf is very authentic. You know, you have so many different golfers. They have so many different swings, and they're very, very good. And no two swings are alike. I can teach you the basic fundamentals of a swing, but you inside have to find out what is your particular swing. If you try to do things like everybody else, you will not become as great as you're capable of being. So you got to find out who you are in this game to become as great as you're capable of being. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but man, golf is the greatest game ever made. Greatest game ever made.
That's a life lesson right there. That was a life lesson right there. The being yourself and finding yourself as opposed to trying to be somebody else and follow their path.
Yeah, I mean, because in basketball, you know, you look at a lot of people. You may have some people that got crazy jumpers that's different from other people, but in most cases, the jumper's the jumper. You know, get the elbow towards the rim, cock, use your left hand or your right hand, depending on which hand you are, guide the ball, shoot, release, break the wrist. That's pretty much what they teach you. It ain't golf, man. It might be a little different for you because of you and your style. Not only that, you can play golf for the rest of your life. There's a guy I play with out here, 80, I think he's 86 now, named Jim. Jim is 86 years old, walks 9 holes, puts his golf bag on his back as he walks and plays the game. You can't play football at 86. You know, it don't work like that. Let's not even get into the camaraderie that you get from the people you meet and the deals that are made on the golf course. When people say the deals are made on the golf course, that ain't some like something that people just say. That's real. And the better you get at golf, the more people want to play with you. The more people want to play with you, the more deals there are to be made.
Wow. You kind of selling me on this golf thing, man. I've been I told all my homeboys that play golf, bro, I was like, bro, I ain't coming. No, I'm not. No, I'm good. I'm gonna be over here doing something else because golf ain't it.
Hey man, don't be intimidated, bro. I mean, it's a very difficult game. Let's not overlook that. Golf ain't no walk in the park. You know, a lot of people, they be like, oh, you just want me to hit this ball that's sitting still? I'm like, yeah. And I just sit there and watch you make a fool out of yourself. Because it ain't easy. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. I say that about a lot of things as it pertains to golf. Golf is very simple, but it is not easy by no means at all.
I respect it. We'll see. We'll see how that goes in life for me. I don't know, bro.
And to close that,
yeah,
what got me into it was I dibble-dabbled with it, you know, like corporate outings and things of that nature. But then I went down to Dogwood Golf Course, 2017, June 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Went down to Dogwood Golf Course for a Father's Day tournament. played in the Father's Day tournament. Shout out to my man Nick and Anton. And when I got there, I saw 70 black dudes playing golf, and about 10 of them were my friends. That's when I was like, I'm in. And from that point, I say in 3 years, I played over 700 rounds of golf.
Dang.
Yeah, I play about 5 days a week.
You out golfing 45, like that man. He gonna have more time to golf.
The only difference between me and 45, all I got to worry about is myself. He had to worry about all of us, so he shouldn't have been out there as much as me. That's the problem.
Very true, very true. Brother, I appreciate you taking this time to join me once again, man. Great conversation. Well, I'm sure I'll throw your social media on the bottom there, but you can throw anything you like out there if you need to.
Oh man, just follow me on social media at Comedian Bam, Comedian Bamm. Go to my website mbbwhite.com. Micah Micah, Bam-Bamm Bam White is what you can find me on Facebook. Other than that, man, even if you don't follow me, follow somebody else that's doing good things out in this community. Find out what your role can be in this community. Understand your legacy is not something you will be able to enjoy. It'll be the thing that other people will enjoy, but it's mad important because that's why you live in and that's why you're doing the things that you're doing right now. So just live life to the fullest. Love yourself. That way you can love others. That's it, bro.
I appreciate it once again, Michael Bam-Bamm White. Sauce. Out here.